to our window to Bourne. I'm joined today by Robert Parady. He's a local attorney, a former selectman for the town, and the current town moderator. Mr. Parady, thank you for joining us.
Certainly.
May I call you Bob?
You certainly may.
Right. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. So, Bob, you're a longtime Bourne resident. Were you born in Bourne?
Well, my wife always loves to give it to me when I say she wasn't born on Cape Cod. She says, you weren't either, and you were born in Wareham.
Toby Hospital.
Toby Hospital, and I said, that was like a little vacation. My residency was in Bourne. I was only in Toby for 3 or 4 days. But she loves to say you weren't born in Bourne either, but my parents were residents of Bourne when I came into the world. So
technically, at day 4, you crossed the bridge.
And
yes. And so, where was your childhood home? Where did you grow up?
Bayview Avenue in Monument Beach.
Okay.
You turned off a shore road. We were the first house on the right.
Okay.
It was
so right near the beach.
Yeah, very close to the beach, very close to the village. One of these excellent locations. You know.
Yeah. What was Monument Beach like at that time? You were born in 1947.
47. I can't tell you what it was like in 47, but as I got old enough to start to see and remember things, which was probably around the early to mid 50s, it was. If you looked around the village section, a lot of the buildings that are there today were there at that time. Ironically, there's currently a bakery on Shore Road, just around the corner from Bayview Avenue. That was at one time a summer A&P store.
Oh.
And when you think of the size, you say that was an A&P store.
Yeah.
It was seasonal. It later served as a small store owned by a gentleman from Monument Beach, and subsequent to that, a barber shop.
Oh, okay.
This fellow, Eddie Corey, who also at one time owned the Beach House, a licensed liquor establishment on Beach Street.
Oh, okay. There was
a hangout there,
okay.
bar, for lack of a better term. He owned that as well. The apartments that were next to that bakery were pretty much the way they are. Where Cumberland Farms is was a big difference. When I was young, that was a field.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much a field, and there was a little path you could walk across it there to the other side of Shore Road, and there was a large pine tree that was actually decorated by the town at Christmas time.
I think I've seen old photos that
had lights. And way before my time, there was a dance hall.
Okay.
On that property.
Oh, okay.
Where Cumberland Farms is today, that I believe burned down. I'm not sure. Like I say, it was not there when I was growing up.
Yeah.
There was a gas station was built, a Gulf station.
Yep.
On the property that was run by a fellow who still lives in town. And of course, eventually Cumberland Farms. Across the street from that was a store called Gooch's.
Okay.
Gooch's Variety Store.
Yep.
There had for many years been a store there. My father tells the story of a fellow named Spike Blackadar.
Okay.
That was an odd name, owned that store, but when I was a kid, that was Gooch's Variety.
Yeah.
And Cliff Gooch and his wife Helen owned it. It was my bus stop for most of my years, and it was wonderful to be able to hustle from 6 Bayview Avenue to Gooch's in the morning and get out of the freezing cold.
Right, right. Just
in
go
the
right
winter.
around the corner.
Yeah. They had a pinball machine
Mm-hmm.
that everybody spent their lunch money on. Usually the first day of the week, it was gone, the lunch money on the pinball machine. But that store was there. There was a greenhouse.
Okay.
About where the post office section of the building is today.
Yeah.
That was owned by a gentleman named Wheeler. And next to that, just before the fire station, which was there when I was a child, was a series of garages.
Okay.
I can't remember, it was like 5 different garages. They used to rent the space for people seasonal. They would leave their cars there for the winter.
Oh.
People who lived on the other side of the tracks, as they say. That was there, and across from Gooch's, where the store is today that has the patio furniture. That was Canada Dry.
Oh, wow.
And they actually bottled there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big picture window facing Shore Road where the bottles went by on the machines being bottled.
So that must have been a source of local jobs.
Yes,
in
there was
town.
jobs.
Yeah.
They, like I say, they actually bottled there.
Yeah.
As well as it was distribution for sections of the Cape. So that was there. The railroad station was pretty much as you see it today, is not a lot of difference.
Right. And at that time, you didn't really have trains coming and going any longer.
Yeah, they still had, we had what those bud cars, they call them. They were self-contained. It was almost like the T, if you took a single section of a train going into Boston, it was self-propelled, and those ran.
And they ran and they picked up at the Monument Beach station?
Yeah, it was 10 cents, I remember, to go to Buzzards Bay.
Oh, wow.
On that little bug car. You could wait on the platform, and it came along and stopped, and 10 cents you go over to Buzzards Bay.
Yeah. Did you ever do it?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we'd go over to the movie theater in Buzzards Bay on weekends.
And how much was the movie?
25 cents.
Okay. So for half $1, you had a pretty good day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to take me shopping in New Bedford. When I was really young, and we went all the way on the train. You could go from Monument Beach to New Bedford.
Yeah, wow.
And it was like going to the big city to go to New Bedford. I didn't go to Boston that much as a child.
Yep. But would trains go to Boston from the Monument Beach station?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could go all the way to Boston and down to Falmouth and Woods Hole, and at least I think to Dennis at that time. Trains originally went to Provincetown.
Right.
You could go all the way to Provincetown on trains going way back, but Chester Park, which is down below the railroad station, was pretty much size-wise the way it is. I played Little League on the field there. As we got older, we kept playing just amongst after school. Let's go play baseball. The trouble is, the windows around the of those summer houses.
Oh, right, and there wasn't.
My good friend Joe Agurlo, Mr. Agurlo, you may know from town meeting, is a great gentleman. He has a house there. It was a summer house, and we broke probably a lot of his windows. And as we got high school age, we were, cranking the balls out of that park, and so the town ended up basically banning baseball
there.
on that field,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't allow it anymore. So yeah, so in Monument Beach, the beach itself, going to the beach was much smaller than it is today.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think how best to describe it. If you took the current dock,
Yes.
And moved it north, which is towards the village.
Okay.
So you're pushing that about where the lifeguard stand is today.
Yep.
In the summer.
Yep.
And that would be the dock.
Okay.
It was that much farther over that direction,
Yeah.
and the beach was only what was left.
Right, right. And then what was on the south side of the dock?
Well, so the south side, when you went on the other side of the dock, was what was called a scallop shanty.
Okay.
And it was a building. I just remember the building as a kid, and I'm sure Skip could probably tell more about it, but it was my understanding that you could rent sections of it and come in with your scallops. That's why I guess they call it the scallop shanty. Come in with your scallops in the fall and open them right there.
Yeah, yeah.
And without having to say, like, have to go to, my father used to take 2 weeks off. He'd plan it
Okay.
to scallop.
To go scalloping, yeah.
And again, Skip would remember in October, if I had the window open in warm weather, it was like a horde of bees in the morning. I'd wake up to the outboard motors. That's how loud it was of the number of boats heading out into Phineas Harbor to scallop drag. And I guess it was quite a war once you got out there. There was so many boats and dragging, and there was what was called the hayfield over towards Mashney Island.
Okay.
There was a lot of seaweed.
Yeah.
You see very little seaweed today. When I was a lifeguard, that was another job. That was my first job working for the town of Bourne. As a lifeguard, the first thing we had to do every morning was clean the beach and rake it up and into piles, and then the beach truck would come and pick up the piles. And there was a lot of seaweed, some more. And now there's virtually nothing. And that affected the scallop crop that the town has nowhere near what it used to be, because that somehow, whether it's environmental, that seaweed field was eliminated. It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And the scallop
And that was
seed,
sustaining the scallop.
it would catch the seed, and then the seed would, mature in there. But and then once more, you keep moving. Next to the scallop shanty was Bigelow's boatyard.
Oh, wow. That's where Bigelow's
Yes.
was. I've read about it. Yep.
If you, on MacArthur Boulevard, and I wish I could remember the current name of it, but it's a metal large building, not too far as you go down on your right.
Okay.
That's a boat building. That is Bigelow's building.
They moved it.
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
wow.
it's moved twice.
Yeah, yeah.
It was down in Monument Beach. There were railroad tracks down into the water with large cradles, and people could bring their boats up onto the cradle out in the water and tie them on and bring them right inside that building to be worked on.
Yep. So that was it was a real working waterfront.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
My mother was Bigelow's bookkeeper. And but I believe it was, I don't want to get the wrong date, but I believe it was the '54 hurricane, and the highest water I've ever seen in my lifetime. It came up to Wyman Avenue, next to next to my street.
Yep.
It was just trickling down Wyman Ave, the water. It was lapping the railroad tracks at Monument Beach, and you know how high that is from the water way down by Chester Park. So it was a major hurricane. Well, Bigelow's boatyard went out.
Yep.
The office in the boatyard went across Finney's Harbor.
Wow.
And ended up at...
the whole building?
Oh, yeah. 2 buildings.
Wow.
Both buildings went across and ended up on Finney's Point.
Okay, yep.
And I won't get into all the details, but 2 very famous, this is my lawyer side, 2 very famous zoning cases came out of that. For a variance was granted to Mr. Bigelow to, he bought the land where the buildings landed.
Okay.
And put his boatyard, he got a variance from the town, but the neighbors who lived there all objected.
Yes.
It went all the way to the Supreme Court of Massachusetts, which overturned the town.
Okay.
Bigelow went to town meeting.
Yep.
And got a zoning change to business.
Wow.
And of course he was a local, so it passed town meeting. Well, they appealed again up to the Supreme Court, another many years, and the court overturned that as spot zoning.
Okay, yeah.
So-called.
Yeah.
And poor Mr. Bigelow at this point, that took all about 10 years.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's why the building had to move
And
ended up on MacArthur Boulevard.
during that 10-year period, was he operating?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was operating at that location.
That's an incredible story. So his building floats away, and he says, all right, this will be my new spot.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went with his son, Mike. He had 3 boys, and Mike and I went with Mike. He's older than I was.
Yeah.
Of course, I was only like 7, and we went over. I went with him to get the safe, the contents of the safe, because they floated across with the buildings. And unfortunately, my mother had excellent photographs of those buildings, and could I find those after she died? I went through that house and never could find. I could picture them vividly, but they're gone. I don't know whatever happened to them. And they were great photographs of those buildings floating across Finney's Harbor.
Wow. So now, I just want to backtrack a little bit. You talked about the bandstand burning down and no longer being there, but that was before your time.
Right.
So when you were sort of a 15-year-old living in Monument Beach, what did kids do for fun? That would be in the late 50s?
Yeah,
or early 60s?
We had a group of us, and we were self-entertaining pretty much. Seasonally, we would play whatever sport it was. We played football. We played down on the field at Chester Park.
Yep, until it was banned.
No, I don't think we broke any windows playing football. The football wasn't hard enough or long enough, but we'd play football, and baseball till it was banned. We would have a big football game every year, usually against Pocasset.
Okay.
And we played.
Was that organized by kids, or was
no,
it
just us? Yeah, we did it, and we'd get in school and say we could beat you guys, and it just grow into a big game.
Yeah.
And it was up at where the baseball field is today, up on Shore Road, just past Midway.
Yep, right across from the Monks Park walking trails. Yep.
There was a there was a field there, a pretty good-sized field. And so that was sort of halfway between Monument Beach and Pocasset.
Yep.
And that's where we had the big game. It got so big that Eddie Corey, I was mentioning, who had the barber shop and the beach house, actually got us uniforms.
Oh, wow.
And shoulder pads and all the equipment. And
Yeah.
but we did that as kids. Hockey.
Who was better, Monument Beach or Pocasset? I need to
It
know.
seems to me we beat them. I was the quarterback, so I know we beat them all the time. But we'd play hockey in the winter.
And was Gallo Ice Arena around
Oh, no,
at
no,
that time?
no arenas. No.
Okay.
Maybe Kennedy Rink
Yeah.
in Hyannis, but that was
So where would you play hockey?
ponds.
Oh,
next,
okay.
The pond next to my current house.
Yeah.
We went on Clay Pond.
Okay.
And again,
And it would freeze up enough?
Well, they say when you were a kid, well, when you get older, as I am, you start to take events that as a child may have happened once.
Right.
Like the big snow, you had a big snowstorm, and now you say, when I was a kid, every winter we had 4 feet of snow.
Yeah,
Well, it might
yeah.
have been once. But I can sincerely say that today, looking at, it's a rare sight to see Clay Pond frozen.
Totally frozen, yeah.
And it seems to me, in recollection, that it was frozen frequently when we were kids
Yeah.
and could play there.
Yeah.
Finney's Harbor. Again, when I was really young, people could drive, they were crazy, but pick up trucks across to Mashpee
Oh,
Dike.
wow.
On the ice.
Yeah.
We as children, as we were older, would go out maybe as far as Old Cow Rock. Do you know that rock that's out? They
Yeah.
call it Old Cow Rock.
Old Cow Rock. I
Yeah.
didn't know that's what it was called,
Yeah,
but I know
that's what
it.
it's. Somebody
Yeah.
said in some hurricane, the '38 hurricane, some cow washed out and got killed on the rock. I don't know about that story, but that's supposedly where the name came from. We would go out there. We'd never be out on saltwater ice.
Yeah.
And we were almost caught a couple times when the tide changed and the ice started to move out by Mashpee out into the canal.
Yeah.
Well, it's sucking all the ice out of Finney's Harbor.
gosh.
And we don't want to go out that way. We want to go back to Monument Beach, the beach.
Yeah.
And a couple times we were jumping from iceberg to iceberg to
Wow.
just barely make it back. But yeah, it seemed to be much colder
Yep.
when I was a child in the winter, and because we played hockey all the time. I was on the first high school hockey, Bourne High School hockey team in '63, I believe it was. They started it. And we had to practice in Barnstable. It was
Okay.
the only rink at
Yeah.
that time. And no roof. It was wide open.
And that was the Kennedy rink.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
And I remember the first practice, I think it was, they're all skating around in a circle around the rink, and the coach blows the whistle and said, "Okay, backwards." Okay, okay. So we turned around and started skating forward that way.
Yeah.
He'd blow the whistle. No, backwards. Coach, what do you mean backwards? Skate backwards. You don't skate backwards, you know. We had never skated back. I learned how to skate backwards in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in later years, when my son was coming up through the hockey program I would coach, and I remember teaching 5-year-old kids how to skate backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do the same things, wiggle, that I had to learn I was doing in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to show how good we were, the first game we played, it was against Barnstable, and we lost 12-0.
How was
and-
the second game?
Second game, 9-0. So
All
we
right, you
definitely
improved.
improved. But yeah, and our goalie set a Cape record for saves that first game. He made like 60-something saves.
So it was the defenseman that needed to
yeah, and
firm up a
I was a defenseman
yeah,
who
yeah.
still probably didn't know how to skate backwards, and it's very important for a defenseman to be able to skate backwards. But
so, Bob, you know, since you've been here since 1947 as a four-day-year-old,
Yep.
what in your mind is the biggest change that the town has gone through over the years?
I think we've been blessed in many ways, I think, as I've seen through the years, that we haven't seen the impact that many communities have growth-wise. And some people can argue that that's good or bad, but I remember, for example, when the power plant went in down in Sandwich, and it wasn't that far from the Bourne line, and we used to joke with the Sandwich selectmen, gee, if that was over in Bourne, we'd be mailing dividend checks to our taxpayers rather than having them pay us.
Right, right.
Well, hindsight is, I'm glad it stayed over there where it was, because it did. Sandwich had the lowest tax rate on Cape Cod, and obviously not anymore. There was one school, the Wing School. That was it. That was first grade through high school, and now look what they've had to do. So you know, the growth that Sandwich has seen, primarily residential growth. They say if you put one child in a house, that's it. Unless it's a mansion, you're not going to collect enough money in taxes to even pay to educate that child. Forget the other services. But we haven't had that degree of growth.
It's been a slower.
It's been a slower growth. We have such a beautiful community. We're at a spot where, other than the summer traffic woes, we can essentially go anywhere, north, south, you know, from where we're located, and we can get on a road like MacArthur Boulevard, and there's businesses and there's traffic. But gee, you take a right turn on the Clay Pond Road, for example, and disappear into this wonderful community, or Barlow's Landing Road, into Pecasset, that is hidden from all that traffic.
It feels like Bourne is the best kept secret.
It is, and I guess growing up, I sort of like it that way. I don't think more growth, other than very well-planned commercial growth in the right places in town. We don't need any more residential growth per se. It would probably hurt us, but
with the open spaces that we have through the Bourne Conservation Trust, it really has. I mean, the town has become such a jewel with
the town
with
has.
Things.
When I was in office, either once or twice, I definitely remember the first time we got overrides just to buy land. We were able to make people realize that it's better for us, because some people would argue, gee, you're buying the land, that's taking it off the tax rolls. Yeah, it's taking it off the tax rolls, correct. But if you allow it to be developed, the money generated, it's a losing proposition. You're better off buying it and keeping it open space.
And anybody who's had a walk through any of those conservation trails is reaping the benefits of those decisions. I
am so, again, like where my house is, from my backyard, 7,000 feet to MacArthur Boulevard, there's nothing. There's not a house. That's all part of the hundreds of acres of town forest that the town had the insight, and that was back in the 50s
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they started to acquire that land.
Yeah.
So we've been fortunate in that respect.
Well, Bob, I just want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Very welcome.
And thanks for your years of service to the town.
Oh,
and
I enjoy it.
well, we really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for another few hours. But and thank you for joining us as we took this glimpse into the past and present of Bourne. Thank you.